Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
What can mediumship offer you? We're going to have a heart-to-heart chat with another medium to talk to you about what it takes to become a medium and what it takes to listen to a mediumship reading and how it works. This is Angelscapes, and I'm your host, Nancy Smith. And in this episode, I am joined by Anthony Mikolojeski, who is a psychic medium, for an open conversation about mediumship. Two of us are both do the same kind of thing, but we both have a different outlook on it. So we're going to bring some really good information. We will discuss what it takes to develop mediumship skills and what the turning point is for someone to decide to become a medium and study mediumship and what that takes to develop that skill. We're going to also talk about public demonstrations and what to realistically expect from them, as well as possibly a one-on-one reading. So Anthony is a psychic medium. He's out of Asheville, North Carolina area. He's known as the Asheville Medium. You can find him as the AshevilleMedium.com. He's a proud member of the Best American Psychics, and I think that's where we first met, because we were both on that site. It's really great. And he's studied with a ton of different people. I think we'll go over that as we talk to each other about how we studied and where we go. So today, Anthony's going to tell us why we do mediumship, why he does mediumship, why I do mediumship, and the truth and understanding to our souls that we do live beyond the physical world. Our spirits are and the loved ones on the other side are helping us. They're guiding us, and that our love continues and grows on. It never ever dies. So welcome to the show, Anthony.
Hey.
So glad you could come and
Thank you.
Join me. We had a lot of tech problems at the very beginning, but I think we've got it nailed now.
Well, thank you for having me, Nancy, and good evening, everyone.
Yeah. So we're gonna Anthony, I have been ever since you suggested talking about this. What brings you to do mediumship? It's not an easy thing to do. It's not a small thing to do. You really put yourself out there doing the mediumship. What brought you into the mediumship world?
Well, Nancy, to be honest with you, for a long time, I didn't even know that I was a medium. And it wasn't until I had a professional medium give me a reading. For many years, I was in the hair world. And so I was having a lot of spiritual experiences and visitations, and it just started to, accelerate. And so I started to research a little bit about why I was experiencing this. And of course, there wasn't that many books about it, available. And so I went to a medium that someone suggested at the salon, and a friend of mine by the name of Marcella, and she said, "There's this great medium I want you to go to." So I booked the reading with her, and first thing she said to me is, "You're a medium, and that's why you're having all these experiences." And I said, "There's no way."
What are you talking
right.
about? Yeah.
And so it was a lot to take in, and I was still in denial. So for many years, I just suppressed it. But, as we know, Nancy, the spirit world always has its way of forcing or pressuring us to work with the spirit world. And I think it's a soul decision to research and then accept to do the work, because it's a lot of responsibility, as we both know.
Oh, yeah.
We're dealing with the responsibility of the people in the spirit world who are very much alive, just like you and I. So when we're working with them, we have to, respect them as I'm having a conversation with you or anyone else. And you're dealing with people's lives, and their experiences. And some of their experiences are loving and happiness and gatherings. And then there's the traumas and the sadness and the closures and the forgiveness that's so important in mediumship.
So when you first
So,
started, I mean, you said you didn't know anything about mediumship. You had some experiences. You thought you ought to go see a medium. What were some of those experiences that made you initially go see that medium?
oh, I knew you were going to go there.
Oh, so sorry.
Well, I had a few childhood visitations from spirit, and where I was actually levitated. I was about maybe 7 years old, and I was levitated above my family home, and we lived in a rural area. Yeah, and I don't recall how that happened. I just remember all of a sudden I was about 200 feet above my home. And
Wow.
there were 4 spiritual beings behind me of light that I couldn't see their faces. I just knew they were behind me. And they said, "We've got you. Don't worry," And I just remember how cool it was to be kind of flying,
Yeah.
in a
Oh my
sense. As a
gosh.
child, it was very exhilarating. But at the same time, yeah, I have to say it was scary too, I mean,
Oh yeah.
and all I could remember is my mother coming out and saying dinner was ready and where are you? And her looking for me. And we lived in a rural area. And so I could see her walking around the property, calling for me. And so I don't really remember how I was transported back down onto the ground. That part of it is kind of blacked
So
out.
just to be straight, your mother never looked up.
No,
She never saw you up.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. But I told these beings in telepathy, I just said to them, "You've got to put me down. You've got to put me down. I'm going to be in so much trouble." And I was in a lot of trouble because after I was placed behind the garage, which was separate from the house, and I remember her coming around the corner. And make a long story short, there was at least 30 minutes of time lapse that had happened. So for 30 minutes, she was looking for me. You can only imagine what that must have been like.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
missing your child.
Panic, heart attack, 30.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there was that, and then one time I worked when I was working at the salon, I worked there at Philip Nolan's salon, which was in Livonia, and I worked there for almost 8 years, and I remember walking across
Livonia, where? What state? Livonia, North Carolina?
Michigan, Livonia, Michigan.
I'm
Yes,
from Michigan too. I'm from Detroit. Okay.
that's right. That's right.
Right.
Remember, we have that connection.
Yeah, totally slipped my mind. Okay, Livonia. I know Livonia. Okay, tell me
Yes.
more. Okay.
Yes, on Middle Belts. Yes, between 5 and 6 Mile. That's where I used to work.
Oh my gosh, I was so close to you.
Yeah.
I was Grand River and 6 Mile.
Oh yeah, I know exactly where that's at.
Yeah.
Down from the amusement park.
Right.
What was the amusement park there? Anyway, I
For
can't
the life of
remember.
me, I couldn't tell you.
Edgewater Park.
Edgewater Park. That's right. Yeah.
Anyhow, we're getting off topic, but yeah. So I was working there for about a couple years, and I remember going across the street to the bank, and I had to cash my check, and I was, I still hadn't earned my chair. I was still an assistant working at the salon at the time, and so I went across the street. It was a Friday, and I was there about 5:30, and I remember standing in line and waiting, and there was about 5 or 6 people in line, and then I suddenly felt extremely ill, and then the next thing I knew, I was having to basically lay myself across where they had the check deposit slips and such, and on that glass counter. And it was a very humbling and embarrassing experience because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm having a health problem here. And so the manager of the bank and a few tellers came running with some water, and some of them came to our salon across the street, so they knew me. And they were saying, "Are you okay? Are we going to have to call the ambulance?" And I said, I'm not really sure. And anyhow, as quick as it came on, like a flu, it came off, and I was able to stand. And I remember this older lady with a house dress that said to me, she must have been like in her 70s, and she said, "Don't worry, honey, everything's going to be perfectly fine." And So when I came out of it and I was feeling better, I asked the gentleman in front of me, what happened to that older lady? And he says, there wasn't an older lady standing behind you.
No.
And I said, there was an
Wow.
older woman in a house dress. You didn't see her? And he says, no, there was. He says, I've been standing here in front of you. I've been watching the whole thing.
Oh my
So
gosh.
anyhow, I was next to go online, and the next thing I saw is a premonition of like a video in front of me play out, and the bank was going to be robbed by three men with black ski masks, and they jumped the Comerica Bank, and they got into the teller section, and that's all I could see. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, why am I thinking such horrible thoughts? You know,
Right.
I wasn't understanding of why I was receiving all this. So when I got up to the teller, I didn't say anything to her, but she said, you look really green, you know, and she says, you look like you've seen a ghost. And I said, well, I
I
kind of
did.
have.
I did. Oh.
So I went back to work and I told a few of my colleagues about it. And I remember them saying, you must have had some kind of premonition. This is just really odd.
Yeah.
And I had a client coming in, so I had to like get myself clear-headed and focused.
Yeah.
And so I left there, and I'm gonna make the story quick. I finished the client and I
I
got out
love
of there
this
at night.
story.
When I left the salon, and I stopped at the 7-Eleven down the street, and I had to get just something to drink. And by that time, you know, you can rent movies, and I wanted to rent a movie. And as I was getting a soda, I remember the manager of the 7-Eleven said to me, she says, did you hear what happened over to at the Comerica Bank, Anthony, across the street from you this evening? And I said, I don't. I don't. I was like
Don't tell
stumbling
me,
my
don't tell
words.
me, please.
Right,
Don't tell
right.
me.
Don't tell me. Right.
Yeah.
And she says, well, there was three men in black ski masks, and they held up the bank. And of course, I dropped the soda on the floor. And I just remember standing there, and she says, oh my gosh, you're as white as a ghost. And I said, well, and that's a lot because I'm never white. But anyway, um, I explained to her what I experienced, and she says, she said to me, oh my gosh, I can't believe, that happened to you.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. No, I think we've done a little frozen again. You're back.
oh yes, I'm back. Where did I
Yeah.
leave off?
That the bank really did get robbed.
Yes, it did.
You were white as a ghost, and she thought, did you see a ghost? And you're like,
Right. And I told her, what I experienced, and she said to me, oh my gosh, I just can't believe that happened to you, and you
wow.
must have had a premonition. So that was some huge experiences. Those are just two, but
But you've had plenty, I'm sure.
yes, I do.
Yeah. And that's what brought you into, I need to learn about this. I need to understand this.
Well, actually, no. I think I had more experiences working in the salon with my clients one-on-one, or I started to download information about them. And a lot of times it was even new clients, or
Okay.
or just real personal information that I would have not known, or their loved one would be checking in while I was doing their hair. And during the conversation, they're there for an hour, 2.5 hours, depending on a hair service. They'd
Yeah.
explain to you what's going on in their life, and it would be a repeat of what I heard, an hour
Oh,
earlier.
wow. Validation. It's not that you were telling them what you heard. They were just
Yes,
repeating what you were. Oh my
I was
gosh.
hearing in my head. Yes.
So you get a
Mhm.
nice validation of how accurate the information was for
Exactly.
you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
Well,
very
I
cool.
just, I feel like you're above their crown chakra all the time. So
Mm.
you're just absorbing, their energy, and you're in their
Right.
auric
Right.
field
Right.
right behind the chair. So yeah, that was kind of the turning point for me.
So you decided, I got to check this out. I got to develop it.
Yeah, I started taking some classes, and I think with the classes, Nancy, it gave me more, for me personally, it gave me more confidence to know what was going on with me, but it also
Yeah.
gave a better technical understanding, the science and the
Okay.
philosophy,
Mhm.
and the spiritual path behind mediumship too.
Oh, there's a big, big path behind mediumship, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You now, did you do a lot of your classes in Michigan? You were telling me you studied under a lot of people. You've traveled quite a bit,
Uh,
England and stuff. So tell me.
Yeah, I started actually taking some of my mediumship classes when I lived in Florida.
Okay.
And then when I moved to North Carolina, I realized that, it was against the law to do psychic or mediumship for about 4 or 5 years after I moved here.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I kind of had to put it on hold for a while. And
No
then
kidding.
uh-huh, yeah. So I had to jump back into hair again because I really wanted to do mediumship full time. Um, yeah, or actually psychic development. Actually, at that
Yeah.
time, I really wasn't doing mediumship then. But yeah, it wasn't until I started taking more classes here in Asheville,
Mhm.
and then I started taking classes at Omega and studying with Tony
Oh,
Stockwell and
yep.
James Van
You
Prague.
really traveled here to
Yeah,
New England to do that. That's
yeah, and
great.
then to Arthur Finley College, right?
That's in
Mhm.
England. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And then I studied exclusively with Mavis Matilla. So I took all her classes and advanced
Where
classes.
was she teaching? Was she teaching in New England? Or did you come? Where did you go
Um, well,
to see her?
actually, Mavis was teaching in the Orlando area at the Villages.
Mm,
And so she would rent the hotel and have her classes there. And it was
nice.
really great.
Nice.
Yeah.
She must have
Yeah.
traveled. She must have been down in the Orlando area, and then she'd book it up here to the Boston area.
Exactly. She's out to California, and I think she's out to Colorado, and then to
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Florida, and then to
And then back
Massachusetts.
again. And
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That is, you really stretched once you made your commitment, you totally went all in.
I
Sounds
did.
like.
I kind of looked at it from this perspective. When I did hair, I went to go study in England as well and study with the masters of hair and Scotland
Scotland. Yeah.
and Paris, France. So I just really got a lot of education with understanding that you just kind of have to go to where the really good education is. And for me personally,
Yeah.
it helped me a lot because it made me not only understand myself better, but I think I think you really understand the professional aspects
Right.
of the do's and nuts and the do nots in mediumship. Don't you think,
Oh,
Nancy?
absolutely. As a matter of fact, it
Mhm.
just came to hit me. We also re-met in studying with online with Sheila French, and she's
Really?
another UK very good teacher. You haven't, and
She's brilliant.
absolutely, and it just really realizes even after all these years of studying and practicing and being a working medium, I do need a stronger. I need a good mentorship group to help me. Whether if I start teaching, somebody just kind of gave me the finger and said, you need to do this, either start teaching so that spirit can teach through me. So I'm learning that way, or just keep up with some kind of mentorship. So it's a constant. I'm going to ask you this question because this is something I always like to bring to my show, stuff that's actually happening to me, is that my mediumship is changing and how I'm blending with spirit and how spirit's talking to me took a big flip and startled me. So do you ever have that experience where you think you got it nailed and then boop, there it goes?
Absolutely. There's always a learning curve from the spirit world.
Yeah. You
Even
think,
when
yeah.
you're doing your readings, they're always teaching you new things as there's just new symbols and uh, new words and things that and experiences of how
Mhm.
you feel. It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
ever changing. Don't you agree?
Right. Yeah. So absolutely. And I wish I could sometimes explain it to my clients. But if you could say anything to your clients before they come to get you or come to have a reading with you, what would you want them to understand about mediumship and your relationship to mediumship?
Okay. What would they? Okay. Um, Well, first of all, I always direct them to my website to understand, the questions of mediumship. But since you're asking me online, I think it's important to know that the client really needs to do some research before they look for a mediumship reading.
Right.
Um, and I think that you need to really do your homework as a client. um, from the perspective of coming to me to have a reading, I always try to let them communicate with their spirit loved ones before coming in for a reading.
You
Um,
do.
I do, yeah. And I also want them to make sure that they're relaxed, not having any high expectations of hearing from someone's um, particular, because the spirit world is in charge of who comes forward. And sometimes, well, ever since we had that workshop with Sheila and the most unusual person to come through in the reading, that happens almost every single time now in my readings.
Really,
Yes.
really,
So the
yeah.
spirit world has a really good time with me and the client with the most unusual person stepping
Yeah.
forward.
Oh,
And
fun.
yeah, and sometimes, as you know, it's that unusual person is someone you've met maybe once or twice or maybe three times, and you know they might not even be that close to you. It could be
Right,
a neighbor or someone you met in the department store
right.
with your mother or whatever, and they come forward to do the communication, which is really interesting.
Well,
Um,
I want to say something. I ask you about that because you're going on a really good tangent here. Doesn't it be when the most unusual person comes through
mhm.
would be the person that the medium would never ever know about the person? And isn't that a really amazing way to show that spirit is functioning and alive and well in the spirit side, as opposed to, I kind of have your mother here and it feels like this loving, nurturing energy. Well, yeah. Kind of, do you see you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like a strong validation of the most unusual person that only that person would know.
Right.
And so it makes it more selective. It makes it more special than the traditional grandmother coming through or great grandmother that we would normally
Yeah.
suspect to come through, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but in mediumship, and you know this as well as I do, Nancy, but the spirit world in validation of the evidence, if you don't have the evidence, you don't have anything. And the evidence is only of the experiences that that person would know about personally. And there's no way the client, the medium could ever find out about that person's life, of what that person said to them and
Right.
their special time that they shared together, and all the details of whether or not they had closure or whether they had a joyous separation or what the relationship was. You can't research that. It's
Mhm.
just
Yeah,
so precious to that person.
absolutely.
you know
Yeah. I do want to add something which I feel if I were going to tell my clients that the unusual person or the person that you don't expect, because I do kind of try to tell them, one sitting with one reading, and all of these people came through that the woman wanted to get the reading and she had her expectations. They were all up and I'm trying to bring them down. And it was all her husband's people. And she said, well, that's true for my husband, but it's not who I wanted to see. And she felt that the reading wasn't valid because they weren't her people. They were somebody else's people, even though she recognized them. And I want to speak to that because that unusual person story, that unusual, um, um, we don't get to pick who comes through from spirit, although we can try,
it's true.
but we do need to respect what spirit has to say or what spirit is trying to communicate. In this particular reading, spirit was trying to talk to her about her husband. There was something happening with her husband that I mean, I didn't predict anything. I just said you need to heads up around your husband, and his people are all around him in spirit, saying
Mhm.
there's some we're not predicting anything disastrous as much as there was something really big happening for him in his life, and his people were supporting him and loving him. Um, and she needed to know that. Having said that, um, that's my wish, that people could really understand that we have a high expectation. I find my clients, and Sheila says it's really in America, not so much in England or in other European countries, that the
Right.
American people have a high expectation of what they want and how they want it delivered, and if it's not quite that way, they want their money back, because kind of thing. And I'd like to have that conversation out loud with you, because that's not what it's about. It's about a definite spiritual experience. Talk to what are your thoughts on that with with living, thinking, and beings? Right.
Yeah, I run across it occasionally myself. I had a reading last year where I had a lady come in with her daughter, and it was a lovely reading. We had quite a few relatives come through,
Lovely.
probably 6 or 7 actually. And it was she says, "You're absolutely almost 100% right on." And I was like, wow, that's really great. She says, "But I'm disappointed." And I says, "You're disappointed?" She says, "Yeah, I was wanting to hear from my husband."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, let me see if I can try to connect with him."
Mm.
So I tried, and I wasn't really getting anything. I kind of got a couple blurbs of things, and she says, "Yes, that's him," but that's all I got. And
Mm.
she was just said that she was disappointed. And I said, "Well, you had 2 of your best friends that you've lost. You had 5 other relatives come through. Your mom, your grandmother, your husband's mother, and your sister." And
Right.
yet you're disappointed. I was just really surprised. And but you're right. I think Americans have a very high expectation of what they want to hear. And that's the difference, is that they want to hear what they want to hear.
Right.
And when they don't hear what they want to hear, then it's not up to their expectation.
Yeah.
And we only get that in America, by the way, folks. Around the world, people are not acting that way. So I think we are a little maybe more demanding here in the United States, maybe a little spoiled.
Could be.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in a spiritual practice, and when you go to whoever has spiritual practices, whatever they are, whatever religion or non-religion it is, there is
Mhm.
an aspect of gratitude that gratitude for God, and gratitude for blessings,
Mhm.
and humility, I want to say. And
Yes,
as mediums, I want to say this nicely, we kind of have to humble ourselves in order to receive the spirit communication.
we really
Um,
do.
and we really are in service not to the person who paid the bill, but we're in service to spirit.
Absolutely.
And this is a tough one to take sometimes.
It is.
It,
Yes.
but the reading is affected. Our ability to communicate, well, spirits going back and forth, but our ability to communicate clearly, I think it's kind of tied into the attitude of the client sitting in front of us.
It can be. Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
if they just don't want to hear it until they hear what they want to hear, it's not going to go as good as it could.
Right.
But
I think the best advice that I could give to people listening that have not had a reading, or have had a reading in the past and maybe it didn't go well, I think that it's important for the client to just allow,
yes.
take a couple deep breaths before the reading, and just surrender to the information coming in. Don't have any expectations. And I think just understanding that, connecting with the spirit world is a pretty miraculous thing.
Right.
It's a
It is.
miracle. It
Every time
really
I do it
is.
is a miracle. I don't know about you, but it's like I'm
Hmm.
amazed. I'm sitting there going, wow. And then you're bringing through, how many people did you bring through? And isn't that amazing?
It is.
And she understood them. Even more
Yes.
amazing.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's very it's very cherished in my world. And I'm sure it is with you too.
Oh,
And so it's
absolutely.
cherished very in the heart space. And it's very special to me, because it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life, to be honest with you,
I totally see
and
that.
I've
Totally
done a
see
lot
that.
of great things.
Yeah.
And I look at it this way: I used to make, people look really beautiful on the outside, but now doing mediumship, you know, I'm making people beautiful on the inside.
I
So
love that. I love
mhm,
that. I love
yeah.
that. What I have two questions and I don't know which one to bring first, but I think this is the one I want to ask you first. What do you as a medium, or what do you see mediums go through to be able to do the work that they can do?
Wow. Well, I see mediums go through a lot. It's hard to be a medium. I mean, I think it's really hard to be married to one too. I
Yeah.
think it's really hard to be married
Oh,
to
sorry. I'm having a trouble with, I'm having a
oh,
double. I had to
oh,
repeat. Sorry. Yep.
I see.
So it's hard to be married to one. Are you talking about your partner?
Well, I mean, I think for anyone, really, yes, my husband, you know, because I think not being a medium and being, um, you know, doing mediumship work, you're you're always connected to spirit. I mean, you're not working continuously because your energy would be depleted, but you know what I mean. You're
Oh, yeah.
still always connected um, in some way throughout the day, and it's so engulfed in your life that it's being talked about quite a bit through the day.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
and if you're married to somebody or in a relationship with someone, of course, you know, it almost becomes that the spirit world, and I don't mean this be, you know, cruel when I say this, but the spirit world sometimes comes first before the relationship. And we have to remember as mediums that we have to live our physical life,
Absolutely.
you
Right.
know.
Right.
So
Right.
there's that huge, I think the big struggle is the balance,
Hmm. I
really.
agree. I agree with that. The balance
Mhm.
on all the time is not a good way to be.
Mhm.
Um, and not say that we're on all the time, but the sensitivity is heightened. In order
Yes,
to do the work that we do, we build and develop sensitivity.
we certainly do.
And people really love the sensitivity that we have, and they really do not like the sensitivity that we have because we're sensitive and
Right,
we're perceptive.
right.
And if I've heard it once, I've heard it, you know, many times. Are you going to read my mind? Don't read my mind. I don't read minds. I'm listening to what, and then sometimes you could hear somebody's soul talk to you, somebody's spirit talk to you. And I don't know about you, Anthony, but sometimes I'll be talking to somebody and their spirit or their soul or guys will come in and say, they're not telling you the truth. This is how they really feel. They're really kind of in trouble. And so I'll address them is what they're saying, but then I gently come around the back door and say, so what's really going on? How are you doing? Where another person wouldn't have asked that. Do you ever had that experience?
Yep,
You're hearing people's
absolutely.
spirit as much as you're hearing their loved ones in spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Can totally relate.
It's like, oh, please.
Yeah,
And
because you're going back and forth from two different areas, and you're like, "Wow, what's really happening here?" But
yeah.
yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, we have our feet,
Did I
one
lose you
foot.
again?
No, I don't know. I
Got a
can
little
hear you
connection
talk, so you
problem.
could keep talking. But as mediums, we have our foot on one side in the earth plane and another side in heaven, right?
Oh, you lost me there
Okay,
for a
you're
minute.
back
Sorry.
again. Yay, that's right. But I was just saying we have our one foot on the earth side and one foot on the heaven side.
Yes.
And that is kind of freaky sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
But you gotta
that's why we're called mediums, because we're in the middle.
right in the middle. Yes, yes, right. Absolutely. Kind of, we're a conduit, we're a tube where things come through us. Um, and it is when I read for people, and I know that you've come into that when we're reading for somebody deep in grief or having an emotional reaction or in just being triggered by some of the things that are being said, we're very sensitive to you, you know, to our clients. We're very caring. Yet we have to deliver the message. Our job is to deliver the message from spirit, even if the client is crying and kind of shake. Well, I mean, within reason of compassion, but you know what I mean? We're working. The job of a medium is to work both sides,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah,
we're
I think
while still being in service to spirit. But yeah,
sure.
But
Yeah,
what
and
do you think?
delivering it with compassion and empathy for the client, because there's a lot of emotions that sometimes come up through their experiences. It could be not having closure. It could be an abusive situation. It could be losing someone without saying goodbye, or maybe
Yeah,
having guilty feelings. And there's a
absolutely.
lot of things that come about, bad relationships. And of course, then there's the memorable ones too. It could be joyous and loving, joyous memories, and people start crying. So,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not all about the more intense experiences. It's also about the love, joy, and the
yeah,
happiness.
yeah,
But yeah, we
absolutely.
have to deliver it with empathy, compassion, humility. I mean, there's all of that.
It's all that so very, very important. So be kind
Yes.
to your medium, people. You- they went through a lot to get to the point where they are now to give you what they're giving you. And usually mediums love people, really have the compassionate feeling for what it takes to be empathic and human as well as spiritual. Most mediums have gone through, if you do statistically, if anyone decided to study mediums, statistically, there is some kind of unusual experiences, trauma, or something that forces the person to see life beyond the ordinary and, from the mundane into beyond the mundane. Of course, being 4 years old and levitating 200 feet above your house would be a big deal. But
It was.
it was, yes. And then not being understood, got into a lot of trouble. And I can't understand why the spirits didn't tell your mother to look up, but that's another thing. But in any event, I think I'm going somewhere with this comment. It's a gift. We can all experience our loved ones on the other side. We all have mediumistic abilities, and those of us who have chosen to develop it so that we can help people communicate to their loved ones is a gift as well. But it's work. It's people have said, a lot of my teachers, and I'm sure Mavis and many of your teachers said, you've got to do your personal work.
Yes.
You've got it. And what is personal
Teacher.
work? If you're going to be a medium, what is your personal work?
Well, I think, we strive to work on our own issues. I think the spirit world too, you talk about, as mediums, Nancy, you and I have had a lot of losses in our life.
Mhm.
Most mediums have had a lot of traumatic loss.
Right.
And so people say, well, why has that happened? And so Mavis Patilla has mentioned in her workshops, and she says, the spirit world is having you learn about those personal experiences so that you're able to understand and express your compassion and empathy for your client.
Absolutely.
Did I lose
Absolutely.
you?
You're still with me. Well, to
Okay.
you gotcha. We didn't lose you at all. It just
Okay.
blinked for a
Okay.
minute.
Okay.
But that was so well said by Mavis. So many times people say, why did I have to go through all this? This isn't fair. This is of course, there
Yeah.
it, but the word fair and it's not fair is kind of something we make up. It's life is life. And
Well, Earth is a school for us as souls, remember.
yeah, it is.
So we're learning as a soul, we are learning different lessons while we're here. And that's why our lessons are so individually separate from each other. So one person, you can come from the same family, the same community, the same religion, and you can have 5 children, and the children are so completely different. And their lessons and experiences are going to be so completely
Oh, isn't
different.
that so true? Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Yeah. Would you call my
Right.
kids and tell them that for me? Thanks. It's just like, they're like, Ma, you didn't, it's just who you were. But yeah, no,
And it's like that for mediums. And so I think, you have to have a lot of bravery to become a medium. It takes
yeah,
bravery to do this
it
work
does. It
because you're
does.
dealing with, the feelings of the spirit world, who are very much alive, and the feelings of your client who are sitting before you.
Right.
Um, yeah.
I wanted to talk about another hard thing,
Sure.
is that there are plenty of people who want to disprove mediums, or they want to disprove psychic stuff. And I was
Mhm.
talking to a friend of mine who teaches remote viewing. She was giving a little talk, and she said, I ran into one of those people who, we know who they are. And one of the names rhymes with candy, but we someone who is a skeptic, no matter what you do, no matter what miraculous piece of evidence you bring through, can always find a way to logically dispel or disprove what you said. So the brain is a very powerful tool to use, but the brain is not connected to spirit. So this is a heart-centered endeavor. It's not meant to fool anybody. It's meant to bring a deeper awareness of what life is all about. But if you have a skeptic, and then people say, I don't really believe in this stuff. And I said, well, you've got two choices. You could either leave now, or you could just go with it, have the experience, and then walk away with it. And then those people who have stay with the experience, walk away with it. Years later, they come back and say, wow, you really told me something that was important for me to know. And you were right. Not that I was right, but what Spirit said was very helpful to them. So let's talk a little bit about the fearful person or the skeptical person who's going to decide everything in the reading is wrong.
Let's see. Well, first of all, I think that as we grow up, we are, a lot of times programmed by our parents. So there are expectations of how to act and what to believe in. And so if your parents were Catholic or if they were Jewish, you're going to be programmed to believe their thoughts, their ways, and what's acceptable. So that's where it starts there. But I truly believe that sometimes some people are so analytical, they think the mind, they're in control of everything in their life. And again, like you said, it comes from a head space and not the heart space.
Right.
And I always find those are the people who are missing the spiritual component
Right.
of understanding or having any compassion or and not compassion, maybe not the wrong word, but an understanding that, even though we're also very, very different across the world, religiously, culturally, what have you, we're very much the same in so many ways. And to understand we're a spirit first having a human experience versus a human having a spiritual experience. So I think once you understand that there is some connection, you start having more empathy or understanding about other people that are not like you.
Yes.
And as you start to understand that, then you start looking at life a little differently because it starts opening you up to, wow, I never knew that this happened in this culture. I never knew that these people were like this, and there's so much like my family, back home. I think it just gives you an awareness about life, and when you
You might have a little frozen again, but it does bring you into an awareness of spiritual awareness that you're beyond, you're bigger than your body, you're bigger than your mind.
and then there's an appreciation too. Like I think that as I think as we become more connected with the earth and with nature, we have a better understanding that we are so small to the portion of the world. I mean, look at all the magical and beautiful things that we have in the world, and how many people take that for granted and don't even recognize it from a day-to-day basis.
We lose touch. You lose touch when you're not. And then if we go to a spiritualist service, they talk about, we believe in the natural laws, following the natural laws. There's no theology in there, but there are, did you notice there's the metaphysical natural laws? But I so agree with that. Agree with that. I wanted to just, I was looking at the time and saying, holy cow, we could talk about this for 2 hours, but I want to throw in that Anthony you could find him at asheville.medium.com. You could read all about him. You could book a reading with him. I highly recommend that you do that. Anthony also does animal communication.
I do.
So animals, it's animals in spirit, or do you do animals whether they're on this side or the other side?
On this side, living, or in the spirit world? Yes. Mhm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Love. That is such a gift. So if you have a pet that you miss, or you have a pet that you misunderstand, give Anthony a call, set up a session with him.
I have a lot of pets that of pets that come through.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My favorite one, when I had a big dog, I don't know if he's a mastiff, it's a big dog, and his brother, who was older than him, was a German Shepherd. Any event, he was complaining about the horrible smell in the house, and I smelled. He was communicating to me through smells and scents, and he was talking to me about the chinchillas that smelled really bad.
Oh.
It's like, why did you have to? He waited till he could communicate from the other side. They really stink. It was
Wow.
the funniest thing ever. He loved his people. He loved his people so much. But Anthony and I, we're gonna do a demonstration come in January, end of January. The last Thursday in January is at the 26th. Am I remembering that right?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll be posting more about it. It's to be in the evening online. So Thursday evening, 7:30 online. We'll be posting how to get tickets and how to go. We're going to do a demonstration. So just spend 2 minutes explaining what a demonstration is. Anthony and I are really excited to work together. We've been trying to do this for, I don't know, a couple of years now. So
Yes.
explain a demonstration, Anthony.
Well, first of all, we have to honor you, Nancy, because first of all, for all of you that are listening that for the first time, Nancy is a spirit artist. So she communicates with the spirit world, but at the same time, she draws your loved one on paper, and it comes to life all within 7 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes, excuse me. And she's just phenomenal.
Oh,
and so I'm really excited to work with you, Nancy. So I'm going to be communicating with the spirit in the spirit world, excuse me. And then Nancy's going to link in with me and then draw spirit as I'm connecting and delivering the evidence, right, Nancy?
Yeah, it's a tremendous thing. It's mediumship for both of us. So I'll be also linking to the spirit, but through Anthony, so he gets the same spirit. And although sometimes we'll get the same spirit, but then one of the parents will come through or something. But it's a lot of fun to see who comes through in the drawings, as well as who comes through in the description, the evidential description. And it's quite a thrilling thing to watch. It really is. In a demonstration, what kind of information, just so that people could be prepared, comes through? It's only 7 to 8 minutes at the most.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be fast little snippets. How would you describe that?
Well, I love doing demonstrations. I know you do too, Nancy. But it's really, it's getting on stage, and it's connecting with people in the audience for about 7 to 10 minutes, bringing forth the evidence with their loved one, bringing forth their description, how they passed, maybe some of the experiences that you shared together, and some of the information that they would know of that's going on in your life currently. And then delivering the healing message from them to you, what you need to hear. So it's really quite just a beautiful experience with that. Not everybody gets a reading. It is kind of a random thing. Right. So the spirit world, whoever's the loudest here in the spirit world comes forward, and we just take one at a time, and we get through as many people as we possibly can, right, Nancy?
Yep.
But what's really neat about the whole thing is, even though you don't get a message and you get to experience this, it's just such a blessing to watch, to see the other people get the healing and the other people being drawn. And it's just a very beautiful thing to watch and experience. And a lot of times there are even messages that aren't for you. Maybe we didn't get a chance to connect with you, but there's messages in the messages for some of the other people in the audience. There's a lot to learn by witnessing this.
Yeah, I call that the economy of spirit.
Exactly.
They are very aware that we're all together as a group.
Yes.
And if somebody comes through and you say, gee, that sounds a lot like my mom or a lot like my dad, well, there's a piece of your dad in there. And or sometimes the master will say, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Take it.
Yes.
Take it. And so that it's a healing for everybody.
It sure is.
Even though it may not be a direct message to you. The demonstrations are a really good way to get to know the mediums, their style, how they talk, how they interact with people. So you could feel like, I want to go to that medium. I trust that medium, that she or he talks my talk. I could really relate to that person. And then you can get a one-on-one, which goes much deeper than the demonstration, which is meant to go quick and be recognizable, and the message comes through. But a one-on-one reading is much different. In the healing essence can go a little further. The description, maybe one or two more people come through than in a demonstration, but we also have a chance to well, I wonder who you can hear, but you could go a little bit deeper into understanding the message of what spirit has to say and building a relationship with that spirit. So I think we're coming to the end. If Andrew's technology god is, oh, there you go, saying
there I am.
There you are. So
sorry about that.
No, it's wonderful. Yeah, I heard on the news that you got some bad weather coming through.
I guess so.
A lot of high winds and stuff. I don't know.
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like rattling the cage a little bit.
We're in the mountains, and we're usually pretty protected from bad weather.
Okay. Oh,
you know, because we're in the western part of North Carolina. I think they were referring to the plains, you know, like towards Charlotte, that sort of thing.
Okay, that's more fun.
Yeah.
All right.
But I wanted to mention one thing about mediumship and the demonstrations to our listeners, because one thing's important is that sometimes people say, oh gosh, you know, what if I go to this demonstration and my Uncle Charlie comes through, who is just a horrible human being to me. What if he comes through and I don't really want to hear from him, and I certainly don't want everyone to know about what happened. So sometimes, you know, Uncle Charlie will come through. And when that sort of thing happens, I just want to guarantee to everyone that you're listening that as a medium, we're never here to embarrass you or to humiliate you. If it is a sensitive topic, which I would know because I'd hear it from spirit, and you know this, Nancy, we're always here to say, you know, I know it was an abusive situation or sensitive situation, and Uncle Charlie is taking full responsibility for his actions, and you would understand what he means by that.
Correct.
And, you know, he's sorry for the very first time. And, you know, you just need to know, listeners, that we would never, you know, go into something that sensitive. Now, on a one-to-one, in a private setting, that's where we would probably discuss more in depth about that.
Right.
But not in an audience to where your family or friends are listening, or community.
But the desire from spirit is usually for your highest and best.
It is.
However, your highest and best may include realizing that they're sorry, or that they see what's happened. I once drew a face, just an example. I was drawing a woman's face. She came through and she was recognized, the medium who was talking. And then I brought in a couple of pieces, but spirit kept saying, put a shadow, no, make the shadow darker. So it's kind of a heavy light on one side and a shadow on the other face. And I said, this is getting really heavy handed. And I was listening to what spirit said, and I do it. And I stepped back, and it was kind of shocking to see one side of the face is very light and the other is very dark. And I said, why did you have me do this? And I said to her, your mother had two sides of her, and one was very dark and one was very light. Do you understand this? And she says, oh yeah. She said, well, now she's coming to realize how much that impacted you, and she wants you to know that she's aware of that now that she's healthy. And the conversation, and the woman, that changed everything for that woman's life. But it was very gentle, it was very respectful, and that's That's our agreement with Spirit, that they do that. There's no bad news, we don't deliver prophecies or bad newses or telling people, if my mom is sick, when is she going to pass? We don't have that information.
No.
Um,
No, we're
and
not the death messenger,
no,
we're here to
yeah,
it's always coming from a loving place, from the spirit world of
Mm.
highest integrity.
yeah. But Spirit sometimes does talk to us about the process of what your loved one went through. And usually there's some miracles in there that they want you to know.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's more of a one-on-one reading. But sometimes these little things sneak through, and that they do love us, and they're learning how to communicate with us from Spirit side as much as we're learning how to listen. So it's I always feel like it's a work in progress.
Sure is.
And but it's lovely. It's changed. I've seen it. It's changed my life. I'm sure it's changed your life, Anthony, but
Oh,
I've
it's
seen
changed my life impeccably.
Yeah. And I've seen it change my clients' lives as well, and help them to get past issues that they were hanging on to and just didn't quite have a handle on. And I'll have to say that I've had people come up to me 4 years later and they finally got it. So it may not be right at that moment, but let Spirit work. Let Spirit unpeel the onion. Let Spirit do the work.
Yeah, Spirit will come with the information, and sometimes 4 to 5 years later, the client gets it. Yes, they understand it later on.
Yeah, don't wait too long. I'm getting old here, guys. But no, really, I'm excited to be working with you more, Anthony, and I so appreciate you being on the Angelscapes podcast. Again, I want to say,
thank you for having me.
We'll have to do it again. This was too much fun. AshevilleMedium.com. Look Anthony up, and take a risk. And you can find me at angelscapes.net, and you can find the Angelscape podcast on any of your all your favorite podcast outlet, iTunes, what they call Apple podcast now, Spotify, Audible, and all. And then we're going to go on YouTube as well, Angelscapes podcast. You can look that up and find it and re-listen to what Anthony had to say. Anthony's probably going to share it on his site, so you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So really want to appreciate you deeply, and we'll do this again because this was fun. There's lots to talk about on mediumship. So
there sure is, isn't there?
Yeah,
it's never ending. Thank you so much for having me, Nancy. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking so forward to us working on the demonstration. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Later in January 2023. Yeah. All right, you take good care, and
you too.
Get warm and snuggly and have your tea and all that stuff. So we're going to say goodnight. Our episode is over, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks care. Again, everyone. Thank you, Nancy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.net. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.